Players, it's your girl Jamil, and welcome back to Jamil's Journey to JD. Today I'll be taking you guys along with me for part 2 of the NEBLSA Convention. So this convention was held in Buffalo, so you guys will be able to see all the live footage of everything happening. I realized when I was editing the video that I never included the tips that I said I would include, including the takeaways and things of that sort. So this part of the video will just break down my experience, and so you guys will be able to see the key takeaways and the gems and everything. So you guys have to watch the entire video, and if you guys are ready, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and let's hop into the video. Alright you guys, so periodically you'll see me look down. I have all my notes in front of me. I typed them all up, so I'll be reading them to you, all the gems that I picked up, of course. So the first panel that I went to is titled "In the Trenches, Litigating for Justice." And some of the key gems that they gave that I wrote down include the importance of having good organization and case management, that they are important skills to have. You will never master the law. It's a practice and it's an ever-learning industry. Show yourself respect when communicating with partners and associates. Give back to the community financially as well as time. Some of the challenges of being an attorney is when you have to play therapist or friend when the client needs emotional support. Oftentimes it's because they're having a bad day. People in the community will try to get legal services for free. You have to have a balance for you. Have emotional boundaries, knowing what's yours and what's not yours, in terms of like not picking up a problem that somebody else has if it's not your problem. Like if you're that person who likes to take on more, like you're an empath and you want to help people solve their problems, just realize when a problem is yours, when it's your problem and when it's somebody else's problem, just for your own emotional health. So my favorite session was the lawyering and content creation panel. So as you guys will see, I was in the room with Any Given Sunday, Yoshi from the Law School Mentor, and Priscilla from Legally Priscilla. And these panelists they are content creators, but they're also attorneys. And so they gave a lot of perspective on what it's like balancing those two hats, and also integrating those hats and what that looks like and how it plays a role in their everyday lives as attorneys. So whether you have your full-time job is working at a firm, or whether your full-time job is content creating, they talked about those experiences. So a couple of the gems that they dropped, and this is very broad. It covers being a content creator and it covers being an attorney and working at a law firm as a content creator. So a couple of things that they mentioned was being specific as a content creator and creating a profile for the audience that you would like to reach. Keeping your audience in mind and having intention and being organic as to who you are when you're creating content. Keeping in mind your brand. Some things to consider is, who do you want to be and what do you want people to know about you? And I think that's the beautiful thing about being a content creator, is that you create the narrative, and so you can decide how you want people to view you. You have full autonomy of what that looks like. Some of the challenges with creating content in the office, and the policies that the companies had around social media. So some of the panelists were saying that there were some colleagues of theirs who would go to higher ups and who would literally monitor their profiles just to make sure that they weren't doing anything during work hours. How oftentimes policy was being changed around with said person in mind. So Yoshi specifically spoke about, like, he always knew that when there was a new policy, it was always regarding him. He wouldn't record in the office because of it. Like, he really got a lot of backlash, so to say, from his corporation or his firm in regarding to social media. You brand yourself outside of social media. Building a brand is about having control about how people view you. I know I mentioned that already. Fear kills more dreams than failure. So don't be afraid of pursuing your dreams. Let me see what else was there from this. There was a question about how to handle negativity on social media, whether it's negative comments or negative people. And one of the biggest things that they said was that people will think what they want and you can't change your perception. You just have to keep going regardless of what people say, because people will always have something to say. I also went to the Sister to Sister panel, and it was about 8 or so women who were on the panel of different ages and also different lengths of practice. Some of them were rising graduates, and some had been practicing for over 30 years. So it was a good balance of advice that was given in the room. So some of the tips that they gave, are gems, should I say, was that your circle is really important. Energy is transferable. Acknowledge your insecurities. I remember that was a question. One of the questions was, how do you manage your insecurities, or what do you do when you feel insecure? And I thought that was a really good question, because that's not often a question that gets asked, you know, and everyone has insecurities. So I thought it was a really good question to ask and to think about how to manage those things. And so some of the tips that they gave around that was to acknowledge your insecurities, but remember, it's just a moment. Challenge yourself and see how you're responding to your insecurities so that you can combat it. Sometimes we may, shrink ourselves when we're feeling insecure, or we may even do too much more. We're not being our authentic selves. So it's just important to kind of know how you're showing up in your insecurities so that you know how to, kind of work through them and not let them hinder you in any way. So I thought that was really good. Another question that they asked was, to also just think about, when are you most happy? Like, what makes you happy? I know, from personal experience, just being a law student, not even being, a full-blown attorney yet, it's really important to think about those things that can fuel you and that bring you joy. This field can be very heavy. You deal with a lot of things. Some of them are hard things. And so I think it's really good just to be introspective again, to think about what brings you joy. Also another thing was to think about who you are without the names and the accolades. I know a lot of people who are in law school like, yeah, I'm a law student, but you are not just a law student. There are other things that define you. And the last tip was to practice your voice, practice hearing your voice. I know for me, that's something that I'm still getting used to, is practice hearing my voice and using my voice and knowing what that sounds like, even in the literal space of making YouTube videos, but also in the sense of feeling comfortable with speaking out and speaking up, and feeling comfortable to take up space. So I thought that was really good, and that one really resonated with me. Okay, so one of the last sessions that I attended was titled Crafting Your Personal Brand. And this session, I think, was right up there in terms of my favorites with lawyering and content creation. So this session was led by Yoshi, who is the creator of the Law School Mentor. And he was one of the panelists also in the lawyering and content creation panel. And so a couple of the things that he talked about and really emphasized was the importance of networking and how that can really influence a hiring decision in the midst of having hundreds of thousands of applications for a position. Someone on the inside recognizes your name and can speak to who you are in the midst of thousands of applications. And so a lot of the things that he mentioned were relatively around that. So a couple of things. One, see yourself as a company or a product. Not everyone will see value in your product. Why should a company invest in you and pay you the salary that you're requesting? In other words, what makes you stand out? And the importance of the networking comes in when you have that person on the inside who can speak to who you are and who can bring you into the position. That's the power that networking can afford you. In the midst of everybody else who's equally qualified, what makes you stand out? Networking can make that difference. Having that person who can speak to you makes that difference. Always think about how you can add value. You will always be the right package, but you might be at the wrong door. So don't think that there's anything wrong with you just because an opportunity hasn't presented itself. And speaking of opportunities that present themselves, another quote that he mentioned was that an opportunity will present itself to those who are thought of. So when someone is thinking, oh, I need a personal injury attorney, and you are a personal injury attorney, you want to make sure that person can think of you and refer a client to you for that personal injury, situation or case. You always want to be at the forefront of people's minds when they're thinking of a need. Being intentional also with regularly maintaining your connections. So a tip that he advised or recommended was to set your alarm once a week for roughly like 10 to 20 minutes each week, maybe on a Friday, and intentionally reach out to those connections, ask people how you're doing, foster a genuine relationship with them. Don't just think about what they can do for you, because people will spot that and likely will not want to interact with you because of that. The day that you plant the seed is not the day you eat the fruit, which again speaks to that networking, right? So if you are the person who is reaching out to someone for 10 minutes, or you take 10 minutes out of your day to make those connections and to maintain those relationships, you may not necessarily be the person that they think about today, right? But 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, when they're thinking like, oh, I really know this person will be a great fit for you, you will then be able to reap the benefits of that connection and of that relationship, because they will again think about you. You'll be at the forefront. You would have maintained that relationship over time, and so the fruits of that relationship will then foster over time, and you'll be able to maintain a good relationship and be the person that they think about when the opportunity presents itself. And the last tip to remember is that dreams die in your comfort zone. So be willing to step outside of yourself, outside of your comfort zone, and tackle your dreams even when they're uncomfortable. All right, you guys, so this essentially sums up how my convention experience was. This was my first time going to a regional convention, so it was definitely worthwhile, exciting, and I had an amazing time networking with other students from across different schools and across different states. So that was wonderful. I highly recommend that you attend your regional and even national conventions, and make sure you foster those connections. It's been an amazing time. So if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!